Have you ever felt like you had a dream that you knew if you only could execute on, you're certain it would be possible? You have all the information you need, and you have all, you could say maybe even the resources you need, right? Maybe it doesn't even take a lot. It could be going to the gym and losing a couple pounds. It could be making a couple extra dollars. It could be moving overseas. But for some reason, that uncertainty feels so scary, right? That darkness that you'd have to go into feels so you could say scary, that it's paralyzing. And I'm here to present a question to you that I considered recently and realized we've been bamboozled. When you think of uncertainty or the darkness, when you look into that void, do you see God or do you see the devil? And this won't be a super religious angle, but I use those terms because God and devil, good and evil, bad and good, positive, negative, these polarities define so much of our lives. And God and devil just was one of those things that really allowed it to have a personification. So by the end of the video, you're going to know exactly why you're not moving forward, and you're going to have a completely different outlook on the dark. The darkness will become your friend, but not in a way that's negative. So come check it out. So, is the darkness good or evil, right? And what brought this on is that I noticed some paralysis for a really big transition that I was making at the time, right? I'm going to take the company to spaces that I had never been before. And so naturally, as we've been talking about a lot on this channel, is naturally how the brain works, right? And I just have this here as a cool prop, right? But it allows some order. Ooh, okay. I guess this marker isn't working. But naturally what the brain does, whenever you set a new goal, right? This new goal is by definition going to be somewhere called the future, right? And you're going to be generating it from the present. And it's going to be a modified version of your past. We talked about that before. What does that mean? It means that everything we envision in terms of our dreams, you're like, I would live like this, I would look like this, these people would be with me. Future dreams come from memories, right? You're like, dreams come from memories. Yes. So when you're thinking about the future, many times it's actually not the future. It's the modified version of the past. It's an improvement on the past, or it's a degradation of the present, or a worse past. I mean, the past, the future you're predicting is worse than the past or the memories that you have. So to put this in English, when we have our dream, right, we're envisioning a reality where everything is going our way. The money is flowing in. If you're a guy, the girls love you. Or you have a great wife and you have great children. And you got the six-pack abs, right? That's a six-pack right there. Just imagine that's your arm, right? You got the six-pack abs, right? You have all of it. So this would be a dream state. So the question is, in this dream state, the only reason you would have a dream, a future, a projection, what we call a simulation, this is going to be interesting in a moment. A simulation is the same thing as your imagination, as we talked about before. But a simulation is when your brain generates images, emotions, scenarios that don't presently exist and you've never experienced, right? So it's generating an image, generating a movie, generating a film that you've never actually been an actor in, right? And so it's going, okay, you're going to simulate this dream, and the purpose of that is to show you exactly who you need to be and how you need to act within this movie, right? And so the question is, where does this movie come from? This movie comes from your past. This movie comes from your past. So this movie is going, okay, why do I want six-pack abs? Because I don't have them. And you may have never had them. And so this right here is being generated from this right here. Why do you want whatever new income? Likely because you've never had it in the past. And so this is being generated by this. Why do you want, a woman or a wife or that? Even if you've been married 20 times before, if you're currently not married, then it's because you're desiring a different state than your memories. You want an improvement of your memories. And so the past or the memories actually govern the imagination. Right? And this is very important to note because that's going to tie very closely into the relationship between whether the darkness is good or evil. Right? Does the devil lie within the darkness or does God lie within there? Right? And so the past is dictating many of our futures, whether we decide to or not. And how do we know this? Well, can you imagine anything you've never been exposed to? Right? Exposure is the first element of reality. You must first be exposed to anything to experience anything, right? You can't experience anything you've never been exposed to. And you can't remember anything you've never experienced. You cannot remember anything you've never experienced. So if you were told information and you go, well, I remember that isn't, doesn't the sun go around any random fact you can think of was not an experience, it was information transmitted to you from somebody else. It was the only reason you even trust it is because you trust the person. Because you weren't actually there. You didn't actually experience it for yourself firsthand. So as far as you could tell, they could have made it all up. You don't actually know unless you've experienced. So memories come from experience. And then dreams come from memories. Right? And so memories are one of those things that are often not talked about enough for how much power and grip they have. But here's something interesting about memories. Not all memories are coded the same. Right? So let's take it back to, let's say you're 8 years old. Right? Let's see right there. 8 years. And this is what we'll call a memory scene, right? This was a moment. This is a moment at 8 years old that you experienced. And so what happened in this moment? In this moment, let's say, your parent was angry at you, right? And yelled, let's think of something. Let's say they said, you were playing with your toys and maybe you didn't do what you were supposed to do that day, right? Or I'm gonna use one that I related to. I remember back in the day, one of the things my dad used to say, you don't care, I'm Jamaican, so it's like, they say, you don't take care of your things. But he would say, basically that would mean, you don't take care of the stuff you have, right? And so, if he's like upset, maybe because I just broke the toy that I just got, or, it's in the corner and he's like, you never take care of your stuff. If that memory scene gets lodged, right, at 8 years old, now that memory is coded into my brain. This is the brain here, right? It gets coded into my brain in the form of an image, an emotion, and meaning or interpretation. So the image might be angry at me, right? So whenever somebody's angry at me, right, that may trigger that. But it has to also match the emotion. So let's say my 8-year-old self was feeling, what emotion would go with that? I was feeling, let's say, unloved or broken. Say unloved or broken, right? Because I'm just a fundamental kid that just doesn't know how to take care of his toys. So let's say I'm feeling unloved and broken, and the meaning, this is really key right here, is that I don't deserve good things. And why don't I deserve good things? Because I don't take care of them. And let's say that got coded into my brain, and we're just going to say it's a memory. I won't get into the technicalities of it. Now, this memory right here gets stored into me, to my brain. And now I'm generating my future based on this. So whenever I start to see a situation where things are going to get too good, boom. Sabotage. Protection. Why? Because I believe I don't deserve good things. Why? Because I'm unloved or broken, and it will make, quote unquote, people angry at me. So to prevent people from being angry at me, or family or whatever, right? Just giving an example as we go, I may go, whenever things are about to get too good, right? Why? Because I'm like, the end result for me, even though I'm not conscious of it, is it will end up having people be angry at me, right? So that's just an example, right, of how the levels of meaning, again, I won't get too technical here, but this is important to understand, right? Because when it comes to darkness, if that is my memory, if that becomes an aspect of my identity, right, then what am I going to dream based on that memory? If I feel like I'm unloved or I'm not good enough, then the dream I will dream will be one where I'm good enough. Now it may look like all these different things, but this dream becomes a simulation to get away from my past. It becomes something where I want to stop feeling unworthy or broken. Now, this doesn't emerge as a clear, articulated thought. I was 8 when it got coded. So this may just emerge as a feeling whenever I'm about to win. Whenever I'm about to win, anxiety. When I'm about to finally get what I want, anxiety. Why? Because the code we just talked about. I can't take care of my things. Therefore, if I get the thing, I won't take care of it. If I don't take care of it, people will be upset with me. People are upset with me. Identity death. Right? Especially if that person's value comes from, you could say, getting certain reactions from people. People saying you're great. People saying this and saying that. Then whenever we're about to get to a place where, oh no, if I make the money, if I go to the school, if I get the new position, whatever that may be, people are going to stop liking me. Danger, 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 danger. And as we always say, self-sabotage, bad habits, all those things, overthinking, anxiety, are protection responses. Protection responses from your brain. When it goes, where we're going next, the dream that we're going towards is dangerous, because we just said the where we're going is going to lead to everybody hating me. So, protect. Too dangerous. Don't go, but always keep trying, but never arrive. Always keep trying, but never arrive. Why? Because arrival means death. Now this seems like, oh, no way, right? But remember these things. One thing you want to realize or remember, if nothing else from this video, is this. Your brain does not speak English. Your brain does not speak English. Your brain or your nervous system speaks emotions and reaction. Emotions and reaction. So you'll feel this, or you may have this natural reaction that you call self-sabotage, that you call overthinking, that you call overstimulating, but it's protection. And until that dream becomes safe, then nothing will change. Keep going in this cycle of attempt, sabotage, attempt, sabotage, attempt, sabotage, attempt, sabotage, attempt, sabotage. Then after a while, self-trust goes down. Why? Because now, when you do this, your brain starts to expect this. So now, effort equals failure. This was one that we talked about a bit last time. And when that gets coded into your brain, effort equals failure. Failure will lead to what you think is laziness. But what all of this really is about, what all this really is saying is that from this place, right? And I'll clean the board here. Going back to, is the darkness good or bad? Is God in there or is it the devil? Now from this place, we have this situation. When effort starts becoming failure or success starts becoming, it will lead to nobody liking me. More or less when your dreams start equaling nightmares, then when you look into the future, it will trigger anxiety. And anxiety is simply, nothing complicated. Anxiety means the expectation of a negative outcome. Anxiety is the next moment that's going to come, or the next day that's going to come, the next week's going to come, is something bad is going to happen. So you feel this tension and anxiety. Whereas excitement is just the opposite. It's the expectation of a positive outcome. Anxiety and excitement are the same principle. And I'll actually put them here because it's going to tie very much into what we're making the video about. Excitement. I think I'm spelling that right. Because this is going to be very, very key. The expectation of a positive outcome. So, when you're here dreaming, right, about all you could be, about all you could have, you have to understand that this is a simulation, which means that it doesn't yet exist. In this present moment, you're imagining it. However, your dreams are in the future. Present, future. But the future has an interesting characteristic to it. The future is always unknown. It's always unknown. And if it's always unknown, how do we define unknown? Unknown is something that we can't see or know. Now that's interesting. Can't see or know. What's the core component of sight? Light. So in order to see or know a thing, it's important to be able to perceive it, for there to be light, to be awareness around that thing. And so if the future is unknown, meaning that we can't see it or know it, that means by definition, the future doesn't have any light. The future is not made of light. Like, the future is not made of light. What kind of crazy stuff is this man on about? The future is not made of light. The future you're imagining right now is the present. And it's a modified version of the past. If I said to you, envision something you never thought could possibly exist. If you envision something, it is based on something you've seen in the past that you've already been exposed to. But then your brain kind of modified it and generated a new picture. But it's not actually something you can't imagine. If I say imagine something you can't imagine it. That's how it works. If I said more fundamentally, imagine something you've never been exposed to, you can't do it. Because you've never been exposed to it. Imagine something you've never been exposed to. Imagine it. Simulate it. You can't. So if that's the case, that means the future is also something you can't imagine. Because it's always somewhere you've never been. Which means it's always something you've never been exposed to. So if the future that, even in this moment, in the next 20 seconds, you're like, well, isn't that the future? Yeah, but the camera could have went off immediately, right? That was an option within all the ranges of possibility. It was possible, but it just wasn't probable. And so what does this have to do? It means that the future is always dark. But this brings up an interesting point. If the future is always dark, that means as we're moving into the future, and if that's happening every second, future, 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 next future, next future, next future, and the future is dark, that means we're always walking around in the dark. We are always in the dark. The only where light actually exists is in the present and in the memory. Light is, I've already been exposed to that. Past. I'm being exposed to this right now. Present. The thing you have yet to be exposed to is the future. Which means there's no light. Which means the future is darkness. They go, hold on. If the future is darkness, then what am I looking forward to? As I'm moving forward, looking at tomorrow, and I'm looking at all the things, and I'm looking at my dream, is there an expectation of a negative outcome? When I look in the dark? Or when I look in the dark, is there an expectation of a positive outcome? What do you see when you look in the dark? When you take every step, do you see it's not going to work out? I'm going to fail. Everything is going to fall apart. That means you see the devil in the dark. The unknown for you is dangerous. You are unsupported. You can't figure it out. You're not equipped. It's not possible. You see the devil in the dark. However, for the person that goes, it's going to work out. I don't know how, but I'm capable. I don't know how, but it's possible. That person sees God in the dark. And so the darkness, the unknown, right? Light represents the known, darkness represents the unknown. The unknown has historically been treated as something negative. And so, because of that, unknown for most people means this. That part right there. And so when the unknown is the expectation of a negative outcome, that means if that's where the mind is, if that's where the power lies, then whether or not we realize it, right? And a guy named Andre Taylor said this well, right? Shout outs to him. I don't know if he came up with this quote, but that's where I heard it for the first time. And he says that anything that we give regular attention to over time becomes worship. Anything we give regular attention to over time becomes worship. So then the question becomes, if I constantly give my attention to outcomes are negative, so I'm paralyzed with fear, and my simulations always are negative, it's going to fall apart. That means my attention is on negative simulations. And if my attention is on negative simulations over time, and attention over time becomes worship, that means you worship the devil. Right? Now, obviously, the devil in this context is representative of the belief that nothing will work out for you in the future. Right? And so I use these sort of over time provocative labels because it triggers a visceral reaction in us and makes us go, I recognize that, versus me using evil or good or positive and negative, right? But if every simulation always has you not figuring out, dying in the end, all these negative things, that means when you look into darkness, you see the devil. Right? You see everything falling apart. But that's not the only way the darkness can be perceived or interpreted. Because as I said earlier, we're always in the dark. Every waking moment is the future unfolding. Every waking moment is the future unfolding. So if the future is always unfolding, that means we're always unfolding, which means we're always in the dark. So how do we contend with that? We contend with it through excitement, through the expectation of a positive outcome. And how do we alter that? By altering our memories. Because us seeing a devil in the dark or a God in the dark is based upon what we've been exposed to before. And so the person who sees opportunity, prosperity, when they walk around in the unknown, when they take that risk, sees, based upon their previous memories, success. The person who sees the devil in the dark sees that because of memories of previous failures. And so the brain is constantly running that film and going, okay. Attempt, failure, attempt, failure, attempt, failure, attempt, failure. Effort equals failure. Effort equals failure. Attempting equals failure. And now once that's locked in, everything that's uncertain you will avoid. And you will self-sabotage. And you will struggle with consistency. But all it is an expectation of failure. It's an expectation of failure. And so it's like, okay, now that you understand that, what do you do about it? Right? What the hell do you do about it? That's crazy. This man just called me a devil worshiper. I'm like, right? Right? When I thought about it that way, I was like, oh, no. Right? Oh, no. We think these things through and we go, oh, whoa. I didn't even think about it like that. I wouldn't have even said it like that. So what do we do here now? Like, you understand your memories are creating your simulations and your dreams are simulations, but they're simulations of the future. So in order to change this, you need to understand how. There's two questions. Where are you? how did you get here? Right? Where are you and how did you get here? And how did you get here specifically? Choices you made. Your liberation is in your memories. This is one of those things that's often overlooked. You know, we try to visualize our way out of, oh, I'm going to visualize, I'm going to affirm, I'm going to da-da-da. But the problem is you're stacking on top of your memories things that you don't really believe. You may think it's true, you may want it to be true, but it doesn't feel true. And so oftentimes, particularly in the self-development space, manifestational space, affirmations are a big thing. However, the issue with those things is that they don't remove the fundamental or reframe the fundamental memory, right? They don't reframe the fundamental memory, the image, right? The identity that defines the person, right? Memory equals identity. All those automatic reactions that we do to block and stuff, memory equals identity. And if that is what your memory feels about success, that is what you will always default back to. And so if success equals sadness, disappointment, failure, never going to work out, and that is not changed within the memory bank, you will have a going up, then it'll come back down, and going up, and then it'll come back down, going up, and then it'll come back down. Why? Because you could say your brain is trying to restabilize itself. Equilibrium is law. So it'll allow you to deviate, and you can come up here for a little bit, right? That's supposed to be a smile. But if this is what success really means, you're going to come back down. And then you're going to try to push back up again. And then it's going to come back down to baseline. Cycle. So until this is changed, this is unsustainable. And so hopefully that helps you understand and answers the question. When you look in the dark, you can evaluate. When you look in the dark, do you feel excitement or do you feel fear? That will let you know how the darkness and uncertainty feels for you. And then you can evaluate, where are you right now and how did you get here? Did you get here through avoidance of your dreams, or did you get here through approaching your dreams? Through the avoidance of your dreams or approaching your dreams? And if we're honest with ourselves, we know which one it is. Where are you right now? Are you living your dream or are you avoiding your dream? And so now you can know the only reason you're avoiding your dream is because of a memory you're not conscious of. Nothing complicated. And that helps you understand what the cycles are about and why it feels like this loop. All right. So this is the first time I kind of came on the fly and decided to explain this way. And it's funny, as I was doing this, I'm like, you know, I could explain this a million different ways. But even this concept is something that's often never discussed. So I'll be bringing this back up again, you know, in terms of reframing the dark and recognizing that there's both positives and negatives possible depending on your interpretation of both dark and light. And it's not this binary thing in the way that we've been conditioned to believe. And so understand there's nothing to believe here. We broke it down. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But until next video, I'll just leave you with where you are now and how did you get here? What choices did you make to get exactly where you are right now? That's all we have today.